Hi, welcome to Spiritually Savvy, the revised, updated, new and improved version of my podcast that I had last year and uploaded a few episodes on. And it was really fun. It was a really beautiful way of expressing myself, of telling a bit of my story, but I never really took it very far. And I've actually been getting the intuitive ping for months now to relaunch this podcast with video. I think there was like one day at the beginning of January where I got out to LA and within 24 hours, 5 different people had said to me, "You should have a podcast," or like, "You should really do a podcast." And I was like, all right, source, if I can hear you, I get it. And in classic me fashion, then I proceeded to resist that guidance for some time and was getting a little bit perfectionist about it. And it's pretty funny because this past week, I actually taught a class in my group program, Enlightened It Girl, it was a larger concept about intuition versus ego. We were talking about what's resistance and what's redirection and what's you just getting redirected back to your soul aligned path, meaning that what you've been participating in or trying to participate in is actually aligned for you according to your higher self, versus what is resistance and just your ego getting in your way, doing its thing, and trying to protect you, trying to keep things the same, trying to support you actually in moving through the lessons and the learnings and the blocks and the subconscious stuff that needs to be released in order to become a full vibrational match, the version of you that can actually do the thing in question. So it's a really fun topic. And in teaching that, I was like, shit, I've been in resistance around this podcast for months and I'm here. I've got some really fun ideas for you guys coming up. It's going to be a really fun take, a little bit more of insight into my personal process, into how I move through things in my life, how I alchemize the tougher, crazier, wild, more shitty experiences we have in this human plane into higher wisdom and learning and development for myself, because very much my life is an in real time ceremony, as are all of yours. So it's really helpful to be able to, get insight into how somebody's actually living, breathing, doing this work. I wanted to have the business I now have. Yes, shout out to me. It's the fucking best, actually. We got to celebrate that. I wanted to have the business I have now for so long. And I don't think I realized until I really got into doing it. If you want to be a genuine, embodied spiritual teacher in integrity, you are going to, you go first. Like, you are going to walk through a lot of hellfire. You are going to learn a lot of hard lessons. And I could make a 10-hour series just on all the lessons I've learned in even the initial, like, almost 2 years now that I've been pursuing this full time. But I didn't know that you were really going to also, like, everything was going to show up in your own life, to the extent that it is and to the extent that I'm aware of now. So I feel like it's really powerful to share what we move through as humans and to talk about it and to keep it light and keep it funny, because this human experience needs to be kept light and funny, and tell you guys a little bit more about me and how I interweave all this very esoteric wisdom and, the Akashic records and the energy work that I do and the light language and the this and the that into my very real, relatively normal. I'll say that in quotes because I know I'm not that normal. And nobody's fucking normal. Everybody's weird. And can we all just stop pretending that we aren't all weirdos? Like, honestly, we are all weird, and weird is good. That weird, authentic nature, that is what draws people to you. When you are being your most 100% authentic, aligned self, it is going to bring towards you the people, the places, the clients, the money, the experiences, the travel that is the most aligned and soul fulfilling. So I'll be sharing a lot of those wild experiences I've had in my life since I started living in this way, seeking to live in this way, because spoiler alert, no one is able to live in 100% of a soul aligned way all of the time. If they were, they would not be here in Earth School having a human experience. So just be really cautious of who is telling you, like, oh yeah, no, I'm so aligned, I'm to my soul, like I only listen to my soul. Like, bullshit. Bullshit. You do not only listen to your soul, because you are here, you are human. Even Gandhi, Mother Teresa, I don't know, the most like profound, prolific spiritual teachers that we work with are not perfect. Nobody is. Nobody is. And can we all just like celebrate that imperfection a little bit more? And I say this so much to myself too. So, anyway, welcome to the new version of the pod. And I'm so happy to have you guys here, to have the clients that I adore in my space, the people who follow me on social media and who say my content is resonating with them. I really appreciate that so much more than I think you guys have any idea. It's, creating content and putting yourself out there. I've always also felt very drawn to doing that. And it's not easy. You have to navigate a lot of visibility wounds, a lot of your own insecurities, a lot of fear of being seen, a lot of fear of failing at it. There's a lot of stuff I put out in the online space in the earlier days of my business that just fell totally flat. I'll still post like stories or send emails and like nobody buys anything. And you're just like, you become like a deeply, deeply resilient person. And that's probably why my soul was like, this is what you're doing. Guess what? Because it's the greatest path of growth. Like spiritual entrepreneurship is the hardest path as a human. And I'll say that with my chest all day long. And I kind of wouldn't have it any other way at the same time, even though, I'm on like day 29 of my cycle right now too. And just like deep in the weeds of like late luteal. And I'm like about to fucking explode like a like cherry. And I'm just like, why are we doing this today, Savannah? And it's like, oh, because you get to that place where you are so sick of your own excuses, of your stories. You've, in the background, whether you're consciously aware of it or not, you've been working through the blocks that you have to the thing in question when you set out the desire, when you became intentional around, like, for example, me with this podcast relaunch, like, I'm going to do this. When you say that you're going to do this, these words are spells. You send that out into the ethers, you send that directive to your higher self, you tell source that you're ready, and then you are shown what needs to shift and to move in order for you to become the version of you that can do that thing. So here we are 4 months later from when I was first getting this directive, and I'm so excited to be back in the space. And I love talking and I love sharing and I love hearing how my words resonate for the people who receive them. Even if it's just one fucking person, like that's amazing. I change that one person's perspective in the smallest of ways or the biggest of ways. And that's why I do this at the end of the day. It's, I love money. I love having nice things. I love living in a nice bougie place. And that's not the why when it comes to building these soul aligned businesses, when it comes to working in alignment to your soul mission. And yes, you can and you should be compensated for that, for those gifts, especially if you've really refined them, you're well practiced, you know what the fuck you're talking about, you're able to deliver results for people. You absolutely should, but that's not the goal. It's the byproduct. It is the cherry on top of the fulfillment that you receive from simply being your most authentic self and sharing who you are and sharing your codes and your wisdom and the frequency that you've so gone through the fires to cultivate within you. So I wanted to hearken it back actually to around that time in my life where I was hearing this ping about this podcast, because it was the beginning of this year. And I was in LA, and LA is one of my favorite places on this planet, if not my favorite. I used to live there. I moved to New York from LA. I will eventually go back 100%. I don't know when, I don't know how, I don't know any of the specifics, because I'm waiting for the guidance to become clear around it. And right now it's not. And so far, there's been so much that my experience in New York has given me and continues to give me in so many ways. And I'm so grateful that I came here, honestly, even though sometimes, it's been raining a lot this week, and it's May. And I'm kind of hitting a wall with the weather and stuff. But like I said, I'm also on day 29 of the period. So we're a little like negative Nancy right now. And we're just gonna like let the negative Nancy be in the brain, because she really wants to complain about all the things. And we're just gonna let her like have her little moment in this podcast. And hi Nancy, how you doing? Yes. Okay, can we be done now? Thank you. All right. So I want to talk about when I got out to LA, I can't remember the exact date. It might have been like January 5th. Months and months prior to that, I'd sublet my apartment for January and February, like way back in the summer. It was like in August. I sublet it to somebody's parents in the building who, the couple was having a baby, and it was for both of their sets of parents to kind of use as a crash pad to see the new baby, which was so sweet. And they were lovely. I met them, and it was like a great gig for me because I'm like, okay, this is one of the bonuses of all the hard work we go through as entrepreneurs, of me being able to take this business on the road, to not live through a Northeast winter, because I think everyone can agree that January and February in the Northeast is just kind of the worst. And I grew up in Boston, so I've never been a fan. And some people when I say that, they're like, "Oh, Boston, so you understand winter?" I'm like, "Yeah, I deeply understand winter. I'm 33 years old. I don't like winter, and I don't think I ever will, and I don't think I need to apologize for that." And you know what the problem is here? It's actually not the cold or the snow or anything. It's the gray. Like I'm a sunshine girl. Like I need sun, and I think humans need sun in general, and it is a bit challenging in that time of year. So all that to say, I sublet it back in August. I was dating somebody at the time who had a house in Costa Rica, and he was like, "Oh, you'll just come with me," and I was like, "Sweet, cool." And then we that ended in the fall, and I was like, "Okay, well, I still want to leave." I still definitely like want to go do my thing that I've been manifesting for so many years. Like I work for myself. My business is mostly remote. Like I can travel, I can do all the things. And I got out to LA at the beginning of January, and I had 3 days of like the la la land that it is. And I was so excited. I'm like calling all my friends. I'm going to all my classes, all my spots, all my food, my salad places, my yoga places, like all the things. And then the fire started, which I laugh because it was a really wild experience for me personally, but it was obviously really tragic for anyone who lost their belongings, who was displaced. The air was really bad in LA for a while, and I'll get to that portion of the story. But what was really interesting about this was at the same time as there was like this really horrific natural disaster unfolding in one of my favorite places in the world, I had an inner alchemy process going on of my own life. I had a very serious relationship that ended almost 2 years ago. And I talked about him a lot on the old version of my podcast. And if you've done work with me, you've heard me mention him. This was like a deeply transformative relationship whereby the version of me that I was when we first met over 5 years ago now is drastically different from the version that I am today. And he was a really, and continues to be a really big teacher for me. That dynamic has taught me a lot. It also brought me a lot of pain. And I'm personally moving through a lesson I'm sure I'll talk about on this pod in a few months on not letting it need to be so hard, kind of unpacking my own addiction to suffering and the drama. And it's tough because a lot of us come into an awakening process from hard shit. We experience a really challenging relationship or a really difficult health crisis, or I also struggled with my mental health for so much of my life. And I was seeking answers beyond just what Western medicine could offer me. And so I was multifactorial ways we came into the spiritual path. But all that to say, I thought that I've dated people, I just referenced somebody else. Like I've been dating other people. I've been really honing and focusing most of my energy on building this business, which has really been starting to pan out. And it's really fun and exciting. And I've done ayahuasca sits. Like I've really, tried to navigate releasing my attachment to that dynamic. But there was a series of things that were happening around the end of last year that had me questioning, like, am I actually maybe supposed to reconnect with this person? Because I was going to go to Costa Rica during January and February. And then in November, I was getting this intuitive pull, like, actually, maybe not. Maybe I'll go back to LA because I can just kind of drag and drop my existence there. I used to live there, so I know how to navigate it. I have friends, I have a base, and I'm like, where I was at in the business at the time, and frankly still am now, it's not really the time to just like fuck off and go not that I would fuck off in Costa Rica. I love Costa Rica. Um, but it's not really the time. I just didn't have the energy and the time to kind of navigate like getting into a whole new place by myself, a foreign country, building a whole new network because I'm very social. And if I don't have friends somewhere, like I will make them. I need community around me. I crave community. I love meeting new people and having social experiences. It's like a big part of my life. So it's one of the reasons I've actually loved New York because it's really fun for things like that. But I decided to go to LA instead of Costa Rica in November. And then I heard through the grapevine, we're not in touch, him and I, but I heard through the grapevine that he was moving back to LA. And, with the bits and pieces of information I had, because I really try to like steer clear of seeking any information about him, thought he was single. So I was like, okay, like maybe like, all right, maybe this is like, and I was like kind of, getting ahead of myself. I'm like, oh, I'm going to run into him in the airport. It's going to be like a fucking movie. This is the Pisces in me. This is like the lot of Pisces in me. And I got out to LA and I actually reconnected with his sister because we were super close and I really missed her and I really wanted to just catch up with her. And she let me know he has a new girlfriend. And that was like an earth shattering piece of information for me because I'd really built up this whole story in my head and I'd been really bought into the twin flame ideology for so many years. And, because he still continues to be such a big teacher for me in that dynamic, because I've learned so much from it and just navigated just lifetimes of shit via that dynamic. I really, really back in January was still of this mindset that like this person and I are ultimately supposed to end up together and I don't know how and I don't know when, but it's going to work out. It just has to, because that was the story that I was bought into. I talk about this with a lot of my clients and my group work. So much of what goes through our head is bullshit. It's trauma and what we've brought in generationally and ancestrally and stories that we've created based on what we've been exposed to and what we choose to believe. And so much of the true, authentic spiritual path and process of becoming more of your soul within your body, bringing more of that frequency into your body, is a process of clearing out things that aren't in alignment with that. It's really like I'm teaching a course about intuition right now. And the biggest way that I'm approaching it in the beginning is like, let me tell you actually what intuition isn't in order to explain to you what intuition is. Because so much of what we have within our system is not actually ours or authentic soul truth. It's just belief systems, patterns, programming, conditioning. And I was really bought in to this person being my person because of how transformative the dynamic was for me. And I really couldn't see it in another way. And so she tells me that, and I'm like shook because that wasn't the story that I'd created in my head over the last couple of months prior. And, at the same time, it was literally as like my favorite city is starting to burn down. But this was the very beginning. So I want to say I was at her place in West Hollywood and the fires hadn't like started yet there. They were more just the original like Palisades fire. And I was staying at a friend's in Venice. And so Venice wasn't burning. It's very blocked off by like big I call them highways. I know out in the West Coast we call them freeways, but whatever. I'm from Boston. So Venice wasn't burning, but the air quality was really, really rough there. And I essentially had to leave. Like I had been on and off really sick in December. And I suddenly realized like, oh my God, I'm getting these vibes of like Chernobyl with the air. And I was really freaked out. And it was my intuition telling me like, get the fuck out of there. Because I actually, even from just like the 2 days I was there while the fires were burning, I got really sick again. I'd had like a lot of respiratory issues and I'm just sensitive to begin with. It's the blessing and the curse of being an intuitive channel and doing all this wild, crazy energy work in all the realms. But so I ended up just like and again, I'm like resisting it a little bit because I don't want to leave. My friend was just letting me crash for free, which was so lovely of her. Alyssa, if you're listening, thank you for that. Um, and they have a beautiful house. They weren't there. It was sick area of Venice, and I was like, am I really gonna leave this and like go get like a crappy Airbnb? Because a lot of people are doing the same thing. So the price points of a lot of the Airbnbs in California and the whole Southern California area were getting a little wonky. And I was like, okay, I guess we are doing this. And I just kind of surrendered into it. I let myself go like full intuition, soul mode. And I'm like, show me where I'm supposed to go. Like, show me what I'm supposed to do. Like, show me what car to book. Show me where to pick it up. Show me where I'm booking this Airbnb. I hadn't been to San Diego since I was in eighth grade. I went once when I was 8, and then once when I was in eighth grade. And I loved it, by the way, in eighth grade. I had a sweatshirt for the longest time. I wore it in high school with like a La Jolla lifeguard sweatshirt that I was in La Jolla for maybe like 10 minutes driving around looking at the houses with my parents. But it was like one of my main sweatshirts in high school, and I cut it and everything because this is like 2008, and that was like what we did with sweatshirts. What a vibe. What a time. Anyway, we're always manifesting these things for ourselves, even if we're not aware of it yet. And just didn't know the area at all. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to Mission Beach. Okay. And I booked a spot for 2 nights in Mission Beach and drove away from my city, my favorite place. And it was very poetic. It was like as I'm driving away, there's all this like smoke and it's all freaky and weird. The air was the collective energy in LA as that was unfolding was really thick and heavy. I mean, there was a lot of tragedy going on. There were people dying. There would be a whole city of millions and millions of people. People are terrified. There was no rain coming. I mean, these fires burned for I think like weeks overall. And I'm driving away, and as I'm doing that, like I'm like moving through this internal process where basically like my perception of my future and any like attachment I had remaining to this person was having to be burned up, alchemized. It was such a like poetic alchemical situation, and got down to San Diego, and I ran into a girl with her dog, and I had my dog with me, and I was walking the dog, and I'm exhausted because it's exhausting, packing up and being scared and being sad, and I didn't sleep a ton, like just based between like the air quality and what was going on there and like my personal stuff that I was navigating. So I I run into this girl who's also with her dog. And we're just chatting because, there's something about crises that kind of bring people together. And she was in a very similar situation where she wasn't in an evacuation area, but like very close. And the air quality was really bad. And she kind of basically did the same thing. And she was staying at like a family friend's house in Mission Beach, literally across from me. And her and I just got to chatting, and we ended up, going to dinner one of those nights that I was there. I then moved up to Oceanside because I'd heard of that area, to a different spot. And then she ended up like coming and meeting me there. And we were starting to become like pretty good friends. We had all these things in common. She's spiritual. She was really tapped in. She was just like a really like similar age to me, also has a dog, also single. Like we had all this shit in common. And it was really cool because I was, navigating a lot, and I used my intuition, that lovely intuition, to select where I was going to go. And I got with it a friend. And we ended up actually renting a house together in Encinitas for a week, like a couple weeks later. And it was so fun. It was so fun. It was like definitely a past life connection there. Like I've known her for lifetimes. Her name's Alexa. She's probably listening to this too. So hey Alexa, I love you. And it was just a really beautiful experience coming out of a lot of challenge and sadness and a next level of grieving that I really needed to do to, set myself free from expectations and attachments to certain outcomes and timelines and people, but not comfortable. We never go into these initiations willingly. The ego and the human in us that struggles with these things. And I think the reason I wanted to share this story, because there's so much more to share. I ended up in this whole adventure down in the San Diego, like North County, San Diego area for like 5 weeks beyond that. And there will be additional podcast episodes and a lot of the adventures and universal experiences and alignment that unfolded in that, because it really was that. It was a beautiful, beautiful adventure. And I never would have been in that area if it weren't for what had happened in LA, my physical health, what I was navigating, and then, not wanting to be there. So I wouldn't have been there. And we're always getting redirected. We are always supported. We are always getting redirected. I truly do believe, though I don't like that I believe this sometimes, but I truly do believe that everything that is happening for us at any given time is in service to us, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's horrible, even when it's painful. Your soul is selecting these experiences for you to teach you something, because that's what this experience is on earth. It is earth school. It is the hardest plane of existence. It is the hardest place that souls can incarnate. It is plane of duality. We go through this amnesia forgetting process of who we are, and a lot of the journey is just to remember who you even are. We move through density and darkness and pain. And does it need to be this hard? Absolutely not. Could I have, well, I don't know. We'll see when I navigate this lesson I'm currently moving through around attachment to suffering. And I would love, as I move forward, because I am pretty young, I'm only 33, I'll be doing this shit for a long time, hopefully. I really want to bring more ease and bring more softness. And this has been a big theme of a lot of the plant medicine sits that I've been navigating this spring, is how can I bring more pleasure, more joy, more not letting it need to be so hard. Because if we are listening to the guidance, if we are listening to our intuition, if we are taking aligned action and moving forward on that path, which can sometimes be really hard, like harkening back to that resistance conversation, it can be really hard to get out of our own way. And I see in a lot of my clients, and I've seen in myself, I've seen in my highly gifted friends, strong intuition, strong spiritual gifts, a heavy dose of power, especially feminine power, though it comes up in the masculine as well. But I work with only women right now. So when we have all of these traits, we generally also have a very strong ego to contend with, because it is the integration of that wounded ego into healthy ego that gives us the skills and the tools that we need to be able to hold all of those gifts, wisdom, higher intelligence, and power in our lives. Because if we don't hold our power, it's useless. It actually can cause us a lot of problems. You'll be experiencing, you have it, so you'll be experiencing all of the drawbacks of having a high degree of personal power. And you might trigger people a lot. People might be bothered by you. People, it might be kind of hard for you to make friends, because there's an intensity to your energy that if you're not holding it in a strong, supported, emotionally masterful way, you spill out that energy. You freak out and yell at people. You take things really personally. You can be really, emotionally like a roller coaster. Like, dude, I'm the preaching to the choir about this. Honestly, like I navigated a lot of that through my 20s and continue to have times where it feels a little bit more turbulent, but I've done a lot to bring that into a more peaceful way. And to be honest, the last couple of months have been really hard for me in New York, and I've been navigating kind of what feels like this like continuous contraction. And one of my teachers likened it to, well, what if it's not just a contraction and going down? What if it's actually you're moving through like swells of waves, and this is just a lot of them in a row. And the way to get through that, in the same way that the only way out is through, the only way to get through the swells with more ease, with less frustration, with less like, why is this happening, is to go underneath it. It's to go into it, to just resist the fact of like, why is the water so choppy and why is this happening and woe is me, and lose that victim mentality and just get radically honest around like, hey, there's something in this for me. There's something that needs to shift in order for me to become who I desire to be, because at the end of the day, everything is happening for you. So I've been really working through this deep study on being more present, being more celebratory of myself and everything that I have achieved, because I have achieved so much. So have you listening to this. You have done so much in your life. I attract a lot of highly capable, highly intelligent, highly achieving women into my world. And it's pains me to see how hard we all are on ourselves, how much we try to control and obsess and fixate and be perfect. And at the end of the day, the funny catch 22 of it is that you're perfect exactly as you are. You've already done enough. And when you soften into that with yourself, when you can be that your biggest cheerleader, your biggest fan, when you can hold more of your emotional landscape yourself rather than expecting other people to help you process those emotions, which, trust me, I know they can be intense. But when you are able to hold yourself, everything flows that much more easily. Everything. And it's a really beautiful practice. It's a larger study that I call insourcing versus outsourcing. And I've been working on really heavily for the last couple of years. So I hope this episode makes you smile. I hope that we can all commiserate over how shitty the late luteal phase is. I hope if you're in New York that it stops fucking raining, because oh my Lord. But summer is coming. Summer is coming. And how can we appreciate what exactly is happening right now? How can we do a rampage of appreciation, my teacher calls it? How can we really notice what is working? Because there is so much that's working, even if it's literally that your body is relatively healthy and you got up out of bed today. That is working. That is winning. You are doing so much. And we have to recognize that for ourselves. We have to see that in order to be our own biggest cheerleader. So I really can't wait to share more of the funny things that happen in San Diego, the wild times, and some of the plant medicine sits I've done this spring, some of my personal processes in these last few months. And really exciting that the business has been really popping off and growing very steadily. I'm somebody who would love it to be like a quantum leap, and we just quantum leap into infinity. And the reality is that my soul is really demanding of me to build this in a steady, stepwise, consistent way so that my nervous system can handle it. And that's the best way I would advise to anyone who has their own business, who wants to at some point have their own business, who wants to step into more of a soul mission aligned career capacity. This is actually a component I brought into my group work in this last and latest round, is really talking about how do we interweave the beautiful, high achieving, ambitious, goal-oriented personality trait with soul alignment and what we're meant to bring forth into the world, and how can we marry those two energies together in a way that doesn't drive us crazy, in a way that doesn't cause the burnout and overwhelm that we might have experienced in other career paths or in society. How can we really come into right relationship with ourselves, and through that create a beautiful business that helps other people, that supports others, that supports us financially, and allows a deepening of the gifts and the wisdom and the medicine that you're here to bring forth and to serve? Because every single one of the women I work with, every single one of you listening to this podcast, every single one of the people who follow me online, literally anyone and everyone in the world, we all have such unique medicine and wisdom to share. And it's so important. Like, I'm never going to be the spiritual teacher that is going to just create a bunch of carbon copies of me. Like, obviously I love working with people that have similarities to me because I've navigated those things personally, and I can really like advise them from a deeply embodied place. But at the same time, every girl who works with me in one-on-one right now, like, none of their missions look like mine. There might be some commonality. We might have like hung out in the Pleiades at some other lifetime and, been sisters or something, but we all have our own unique medicine wisdom. And I don't love when I see some people online who, you can tell like who their teacher was. You can tell because and they start to talk like them, they start to express like them. And my work, it's really important to me. It's like a really big value system for me, for you to become more of you, not me. Like maybe you also like some of the same things as me, but like maybe you don't give a fuck about living in a city and you don't give a fuck about making the income that I desire to make. And that's great. I celebrate that. I love that. We are all so special. And the longer I go on and recording this, I realize why we have these stands that I have. It's because when you're holding this, it's very heavy. Because I have the stands from the old one, but I was like, I'm gonna be like cool and sit here and be chill. Oh God. She's silly. She's silly. My human is a silly bitch. We love her. She's fun as fuck. I will say that. And that's been a really fun thing about New York is that I really found that like fun. I found a way to integrate my party girl self in a healthy way and to participate with that aspect of myself in a way that feels nourishing and pleasure filled and additive to my life and generative of energy rather than being depleting, rather than taking it too far, rather than overdoing of drinking or other substances. Like I've really found a beautiful balance there. And it's also something I teach is like how to understand how to engage with some of these more human experiences in a healthy way, in a grounded and integrated way, how to clear your energy after you participate with substances. Different ones do different things. And we just need to be aware of that if you're an energetically sensitive being, which you probably are if you are listening to this. So, and everybody is, but whether they realize it or not. All right, my loves, this was really fun. I'm so glad to be back on the mic. This is going to be a weekly thing, I hope. And I hope everybody has a beautiful, beautiful day, night, week, wherever you are in life listening to this. I love you. I love you. I love you. Thank you for being here with me. And I will chat with you again soon.